Thousands of Israelis took to the streets of Tel Aviv to protest against the government's economic response to the coronavirus pandemic. Unemployment has jumped above 20% in the country since partial lockdown came into force in March. Police made 19 arrests.
The new normal. First register your personal details and take a temperature check before you can enter a cafe in Jerusalem. Student Sharon Livney is worried that the number of coronavirus cases is once again rising sharply. She lost her part-time job during the lockdown in March and April. Now she's facing renewed uncertainty. I'm afraid of the health issues and the economic situation. Students are getting infected, people my age. It's not only the over 60s. So it's frightening. And financially, I'm still unemployed. I still have to pay my rent. Early on, Israel closed its borders and imposed a strict lockdown for several weeks. At a cost. Unemployment rose from 4 to more than 20%, but schools and businesses started to reopen in May.
A few weeks ago, it looked like Israel navigated its way quite well through the corona pandemic. That has changed dramatically. Special corona wards in hospitals and drive-through testing centers like this one had to be reopened.
These testing stations had closed because there was no demand. Now cars are lining up again. Experts are discussing what went wrong.
There were no strategic preparation what will happen after the lockdown. And what we see now, the second wave, is really the result of the inaction during the first wave. And it's unfortunate because we were one of the few countries which ended the first wave with 300 deaths, few infections, and we could have revived the economy very well.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was widely praised for his handling of the crisis first time round. That has changed. People are worried about a second wave. New restrictions were announced this week, including increasing fines for not wearing masks, limiting the number of people in public areas and restaurants. It feels like a déjà vu for chef Dan Shmulowitz, who had just reopened this fish restaurant in Tel Aviv.
You don't know if you're going to work tomorrow or not. Last time it happened, it was very surprising. This time we are more ready for that, but still the uncertainty, it's confusing.
Another prolonged lockdown might still be on the cards, a dismal prospect for most Israelis who thought the worst was already over.
Over 1.8 million people have tested positive for COVID-19 in Brazil. That's the second highest number in the world after the U.S. More than 70,000 have died, and it's the poor who are most at risk. Among them, residents of the slums and the country's indigenous people.
It's one of the most remote parts of South America, if not the world. The Yanomami people live in the depths of the Amazon in Brazil's far north. This is one of the country's largest indigenous reserves. But even here, the fear of the coronavirus is growing. We came to ask for help here, to see if we are well. We walked 4 hours to reach here. Locals believe the virus was first brought to the reserve by prospectors searching for gold. The remoteness of this place increases the danger for the Yanomami, who lack access to healthcare services. At the beginning of the month, the Brazilian Defence Ministry organised a fly-in clinic. It's not the constant on-ground presence that indigenous rights groups have been calling for, but the testing is much needed, all the same.
When we arrived, they were a little bit afraid. They looked at us from afar, but then we gained their trust. They came closer. It all went well, and it's all been so rewarding.
There are hundreds of indigenous groups living in Brazil, and not all are found in the Amazon. Guarani and Bia live on the edge of the country's biggest city, Sao Paulo. Here too, a community is threatened by the coronavirus. Its residents have been learning how to cope in theory, but not all of the government's advice applies in practice to those who live communally. There isn't a proper space to recuperate or to isolate. We don't have any of that, and this is what worries us. The coronavirus is ravaging South America's largest country, and the fear is that it's peoples like these who will be hurt the most. Disease added to poverty and powerlessness, a further challenge in Brazilian indigenous people's struggle for survival.
Let's give you some other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. New infections in the United States are still at record highs, with more than 60,000 new infections recorded on Saturday. Several states logged record figures, including South Carolina and Hawaii. At least 16 million Mexicans have been plunged into poverty by the virus. That's according to a new study. The number of Mexicans in extreme poverty has nearly doubled since February amid widespread job losses. And the wife of Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro says she has tested negative for the coronavirus. The Brazilian president announced he had the virus on Tuesday. He's quarantining at home in a separate bedroom from his wife.